When my son Mark showed up at my door that morning, I already knew something was wrong. His eyes carried the kind of desperation you can't hide, no matter how much you pretend. He was my only son, and though we hadn't been close for years, a mother always knows when trouble's coming. "Mom," he started, voice trembling slightly, "I need your help." Those words, I'd heard them before. Every time he hit a wall, every time life didn't go as he planned, he'd come running back to me. But this time, I could tell from his tone it wasn't just about money for groceries or help paying rent. This time, it was bigger. He sat at my kitchen table, fidgeting with his phone, glancing at me like a child caught in a lie. "It's about the house," he finally said. I raised an eyebrow. "My house?" "Yes, but listen." He leaned forward, lowering his voice as if the walls might eavesdrop. "I need you to sell it. Just for now. The kids and I, well, mostly the kids, need a new start. You could move in with me. We'll all be together again." I almost laughed, but the lump in my throat kept it in. Together again? That ship had sailed years ago, right after his father died. Mark had distanced himself slowly, choosing convenience over connection. When I needed him most, he was always too busy, too tired, too far away. "Sell my home?" I repeated, tasting the words carefully. "The one your father and I built with our own hands?" He nodded quickly. "It's not forever, Mom. Just until I get back on my feet. The market's hot right now. You'll get a good price. And besides, you're getting older. Do you really want to take care of this big house all by yourself?" There it was, that subtle blend of guilt and logic he always used to get his way. He'd inherited that talent from his father, but not his father's heart. "I'm fine here," I said quietly. "This is my home." Mark exhaled hard and rubbed his face. "Mom, you don't understand. I'm in a tough spot. I've got bills, debts, the kids' tuition, and now the bank's after me. I just need some breathing room. Please, Mom, do it for them. Do it for your grandchildren." He knew exactly which buttons to press. My grandkids, Lily and Max, were my weakness. Sweet, innocent faces who had no idea how messy the adult world could be. But something about his urgency didn't sit right. "Mark," I asked gently, "what kind of trouble are you in?" He hesitated. His eyes darted away. "It's complicated," he muttered. That was all the answer I needed. I'd heard enough "it's complicated" moments in my life to know that meant he'd dug a hole deeper than he could climb out of. I took a deep breath and reached across the table. "Mark, I love you. You know that. But selling this house, it's not a solution. It's a mistake you'll regret later." His expression hardened. "You're just being stubborn. You always are. I'm not asking you to give it away, Mom. You'll have money more than you need. I just need a little trust. I'm your son." That last line cut deep. Yes, he was my son, the boy I once held in my arms, who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, who once promised he'd take care of me when I was old. But somewhere along the line, that boy turned into a man who only came around when his own life was falling apart. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the backyard. The garden was blooming, the same garden I'd planted after his father's funeral, a place that helped me survive grief. "This house," I said softly, "is the last piece of your father I have left. I'm not selling it." Mark's chair scraped sharply against the floor as he stood. "So that's it? You'd rather cling to bricks and wood than help your own family?" "It's not about that," I said, turning back to him. "It's about learning from your mistakes. Every time you fall, I pick you up, and you never learn to stand on your own." He scoffed, anger flaring. "You're unbelievable. You sit here alone in this dusty old place pretending you're fine while your family suffers. Dad would have helped me." I froze. The mention of his father, that was cruel, intentional. "Your father worked his whole life for this home. He wouldn't want me to throw it away because you can't manage your money." Mark's jaw clenched. "You don't understand. I don't have time for your lectures. If you don't help me, they're going to take everything, the house, the car, everything. I'll lose the kids." For a second, my heart softened. The thought of my grandchildren losing their home broke me. But then, I remembered all the times I'd bailed him out before. The same promises, the same pleas, the same outcomes. You need to take responsibility, I said firmly. I can't save you from yourself. His face twisted with rage. You're heartless. No, Mark, I whispered, my voice trembling. I'm tired. He slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. You'll regret this. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the window shook. I stood there, frozen in silence, my heartbeat echoing through the empty house. Outside, his car roared to life and disappeared down the road, leaving behind the smell of exhaust and broken promises. I sank into a chair and let the tears fall. A part of me wanted to run after him, to fix it like I always had. But another part, the part that had been ignored for too long, whispered that maybe this was the moment to finally let go. For the next few weeks, I didn't hear from him. Not a call, not a message. Until one afternoon, a man in a suit knocked on my door. Mrs. Palmer? He asked, adjusting his glasses. I'm here regarding the property on Maple Street. Your son has listed it for sale. My blood ran cold. He what? The man looked confused. He claimed you authorized it. I just need your signature to finalize the process. I stared at him, disbelief flooding every part of me. My son hadn't just asked for help, he'd tried to steal the very roof over my head. Something inside me broke that day. Not in sadness, but in strength. I realized then that love without boundaries isn't love. It's surrender. I smiled at the man, steadying my shaking hands. Thank you for letting me know. And please tell my son. I paused, taking a deep breath. He's no longer welcome here. The man blinked, unsure what to say, but I knew exactly what I meant. For the first time in years, I felt in control. That night, I changed the locks. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, as if nothing had changed, but everything had. My house, once filled with echoes of family laughter, now carried a new kind of silence, peaceful but resolute. The locks were changed, the papers secured, and my heart strangely calm. I sat with my tea, thinking about the boy I'd raised. I remembered how Mark used to build pillow forts in the living room, pretending to protect me from monsters. Now he'd become one of his own making, a man consumed by entitlement and debt, unable to see the damage he was causing. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. Mark's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering. Mom, his voice snapped through, sharp and defensive. What the hell did you do? I changed the locks, I said quietly. You had no right. That's my home too. No, Mark, it's not. There was a long pause, then a low, bitter laugh. So that's it? You're kicking your own son out? You'd rather keep an empty house than help your family? I could almost hear the manipulation coiling in his tone, but I stayed firm. You forged my signature, Mark. That's not asking for help. That's betrayal. He didn't reply right away. When he did, his voice cracked. You don't understand. I'm drowning here. The debt collectors. They're coming for everything. I just needed a break. I thought maybe, if I sold it fast, I could buy some time. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Do you even hear yourself? You were willing to sell your parents' home without my consent? And you justify it because you're scared? I'm sorry, okay? He exploded. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Sorry, I said softly. Won't bring back trust. He went silent, breathing heavily. Then his voice hardened again, cold and detached. You'll regret this, Mom. When they take my house, when the kids have nowhere to go, you'll wish you'd helped. I'll always care about the kids, I replied. But this isn't the way. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my reflection in the dark phone screen. I felt an ache deep inside, the kind of ache that only comes from realizing your own child sees you as a means to an end. That night, I couldn't sleep. The memories came rushing back. His first broken bone, his graduation, his wedding day, moments when I'd been so proud, believing I'd raised a man of honor. But life has a way of testing love's limits. By morning, I decided something needed to change. I wouldn't just defend my home. I'd protect my future. I drove to my lawyer's office, a modest building with fading blue paint and the faint smell of coffee. I need to update my will, I told her. She looked up from her desk. Is everything all right, Mrs. Palmer? I smiled faintly. It will be. Over the next hour, we reviewed documents, ensuring everything was legally secure. The house, my savings, my possessions, all would be protected under my name, and upon my passing, transferred to a local charity fund for single mothers. I knew it might sound harsh, but my decision came from a place of peace, not punishment. By the time I left the office, I felt lighter. Later that week, I got a message from my granddaughter Lily. Grandma, Daddy says you're mad at him. Did he do something bad? My chest tightened. How could I explain to a 10-year-old the complexities of betrayal? I'm not mad at him, sweetheart, I replied gently. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and they have to fix them on their own. She sent a heart emoji. I love you, Grandma. Can we visit soon? Tears welled in my eyes. Of course, sweetheart, anytime. After that, I spent more time in the garden, trimming roses and pulling weeds. Each cut, each tug, felt like a metaphor, clearing out what no longer belonged. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low, I heard tires crunching on the driveway. I peered through the curtain. It was Mark's car. My pulse quickened. He stepped out, looking disheveled, his hair unkempt, his suit wrinkled. He didn't knock this time. He pounded on the door. Mom, open up! I took a breath and opened it halfway. The chain still latched. What do you want, Mark? Come on, Mom, this is ridiculous. He gestured wildly. You're locking me out of my own childhood home? You know how humiliating that is? Humiliating, I repeated. You tried to steal from me, Mark. He flinched. I was desperate. So am I said quietly. Desperate to see you become a man. His expression shifted, from anger to something close to guilt. For a moment, I thought I saw the boy he once was, but then it was gone. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I messed up, okay? I just thought if I could get the house sold fast, I'd have a chance to fix everything. I leaned against the doorframe. And where would that leave me? He looked at me, genuinely lost. I thought, you could live with me. With us. Mark, I said gently, when was the last time you actually visited me? Not to borrow money? Not to ask for favors? Just to spend time? He didn't answer. I'm your mother, not your bank. I continued. Love isn't measured by what we give, but by what we share. You haven't shared your life with me in years. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I'm sorry, I said finally, but this door, I glanced at the chain lock, stays closed until you understand what respect means. He stared at me, his eyes wide, hurt mixing with disbelief. You've changed. I've grown, I replied. Maybe it's time you did too. He turned and walked back to his car without another word. The sound of his engine faded into the distance, leaving me in silence once again. That night, I sat by the window, watching the moonlight spill over the garden. My husband used to say, a home isn't built with walls. It's built with love and lessons. Maybe this was one of those lessons, one that Mark needed more than I did. The next morning, I called a locksmith again, not because the locks were faulty, but because I wanted to change every last one, a symbolic reset. Later that day, my neighbor, Mrs. Green, came by with cookies. Heard some shouting the other night, she said gently. Everything all right? I smiled. Better than it's been in a long time. We sat together for a while, sipping tea. She talked about her grandkids, her late husband, her garden, ordinary things, comforting things. As she left, she patted my hand. You're stronger than you look, dear. I smiled faintly. I had to be. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. I wrote about boundaries, about forgiveness, about love that doesn't hurt. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. Because loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about being unseen. And I finally saw myself again. He stood outside the gate that day, drenched in the rain, yelling my name like a man who'd suddenly remembered what regret feels like. Mom, please, just open the door. His voice was trembling. And for a moment, I almost did. But I stopped myself. Because memories have a cruel way of reminding you why the door was closed in the first place. You see, this wasn't the first time Michael had shown up after burning every bridge behind him, and it wasn't the first time he came crying when his luck ran out. But this time, something inside me was different. Something was colder, quieter. Let me take you back a bit. After he married Linda, I gave them the house. It was my late husband's wish that the home stay in the family, a warm roof for our grandchildren, a symbol of love, not greed. But once the papers were signed, the warmth left faster than I ever imagined. At first, Linda acted sweet, calling me Mom, bringing over muffins, smiling like she meant it. But over time, I could feel her eyes scanning every inch of the house as if she were counting the walls. Then came the small things, the unreturned calls, the excuses, the subtle remarks that I was old-fashioned. Michael began visiting less and less, saying he was busy with work. Then one day, I stopped by unannounced. The gate was locked. My own gate. I called his phone, no answer. I knocked, and Linda opened the door halfway. "Oh, Mrs. Carter," she said, as if she'd just seen a ghost. I was just in the neighborhood, I smiled. Thought I'd bring some cookies for the kids. She looked behind her before whispering, "Michael's not home. It's not a good time." Not a good time. I stood there, feeling the rain starting to fall, clutching a plate of cookies like a fool. I didn't even get to see my grandkids that day. A week later, a letter came in the mail, an eviction notice. Yes, you heard that right. My own son filed to transfer the property entirely under his name. I had given him rights to live, but he wanted ownership. He wanted me gone. The lawyer told me, "Legally, you still have leverage. The deed transfer wasn't completed." And that's when I realized the full weight of what I'd done. My husband had warned me years ago. "Never sign everything away, Martha. Keep the final deed, for protection." Thank God I listened. Months passed, and I heard nothing. The silence hurt more than the betrayal. My son, the boy I raised through sleepless nights, whose school fees I paid by working double shifts, didn't call, didn't visit, didn't even send a card on my birthday. But that changed one cold winter morning when a message came through from him. "Mom, I need your help. Please sell the house for my kids. We're struggling." I stared at that text for hours. My hands trembled. Was it genuine or another manipulation? Still, the mother in me wanted to believe. I invited him to talk, to come home, have dinner, clear things up. But when he arrived, he wasn't alone. Linda came too, dressed sharply, carrying papers in a folder. "Mom," she began before he could speak. "We thought it would be easier if you just signed the transfer now. The kids need stability." Her tone was rehearsed, cold, legal. I looked at Michael, my son, for some sign of sincerity, but he avoided my eyes. "Is that what this is about?" I asked quietly. "Not the kids, the house." He hesitated, then said, "Mom, we can't live like this anymore. We need control over our home." "Our home?" I repeated. "Michael, you haven't been here for months. You locked me out." He looked down, ashamed or pretending to be. Then Linda pushed the papers toward me. "Just sign them. We'll handle the rest." I laughed. I actually laughed. "You two think you can trick me twice? You think I don't know who really wants control here?" Linda rolled her eyes, muttering something under her breath. That's when I stood up. "You should go," I said firmly, "before I start saying things I'll regret." Michael tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "No, you had your chance to be my son. Now, you're just someone knocking on a door that's no longer open." They left, angry, defeated, but I knew this wasn't over. 2 days later, I received a call from a friend who worked at the town registry. "Martha," she said, "your son's been trying to file a transfer behind your back. He's using an old copy of the deed." That was it. That was the final straw. So, I did what I had to do. I changed the locks, updated the registration, and made sure every legal document pointed back to one truth. The house is mine. Then I sent him a message. Short and simple. "Michael, the next time you come here, Make sure it's to apologize, not to steal. The door is locked now. For good." He didn't reply. But a week later, a parcel arrived at my doorstep. Inside was a framed photo, our family, from years ago. Me, my husband, little Michael, and a note that said, "I never wanted to lose you. I just lost my way." I sat there for a long time, holding that picture, tears soaking my hands. I wanted to forgive him. I really did. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what someone chose to become. So, I wrapped the photo back, wrote a small note, and mailed it to him. My note said only one thing. Sometimes, losing a home teaches you what family really means. Days went by, then weeks. I thought maybe that was the end. But life, as it always does, had one last twist waiting. 3 weeks passed after I sent that package. The silence was heavier than ever, yet somehow peaceful. I had finally made my decision. No more tears, no more guilt. I started to live again. I spent mornings tending the garden my husband once planted, the one Michael used to play in as a boy. The roses had begun to bloom again, red and full, like life was reminding me that beauty returns even after neglect. Then one morning, a letter arrived, not from Michael, but from a lawyer. "Dear Mrs. Carter," it began, "we represent your son, Mr. Michael Carter, regarding a pending financial situation. He has requested a meeting to discuss property liquidation options." I folded the paper slowly, let out a sigh, and whispered, "He's still not done." Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, the mother part, wanted closure. Not for revenge, not for pride, but for peace. So I agreed to the meeting. It was held in a small office downtown. When I arrived, Michael was already there, sitting stiffly in a suit that didn't quite fit, eyes sunken, hands fidgeting. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Linda wasn't there. That was the first surprise. He stood when I walked in, his voice breaking, "Mom." I nodded politely, sitting across from him. The lawyer introduced himself, but I barely listened. My focus was on my son, the same boy who once hugged me after every scraped knee, now staring at the table like he couldn't bear my eyes. "Mom, I made mistakes," he started. "Linda left. She took the kids. I'm in debt. I don't know what to do." I didn't react. I'd heard confessions before, but this one came too late. "Michael," I said softly, "you didn't lose your life overnight. You lost it piece by piece. Every time you chose pride over love, money over honesty, her voice over mine." He wiped his face, shame dripping from every word. "I know. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was building something." "What you built," I said quietly, "was a house with no foundation." He looked up. "Mom, please. I'm not asking for the house anymore. I just need help getting back on my feet. A loan, anything." I studied him. He looked smaller somehow, like the world had finally shown him what he refused to see, that greed never wins in the long run. "Michael," I said, "when your father died, I swore I'd never let you drown. But every time I threw you a rope, you used it to pull me under." He broke down then, really broke down. The kind of sobbing that comes from regret too heavy to hide. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. I told him to step out for a minute. When we were alone, I reached across the table, took my son's trembling hands, and said, "If you truly want to rebuild, start by earning your dignity back. The house won't fix your life, Michael, but your honesty might." He nodded through tears. "I'll do anything, Mom." That's when I made a choice, one that wasn't about punishment, but teaching. "I'll help you," I said, "but not with money. You'll come back home, not to live, but to work. You'll fix the broken fences, clean the garden, repaint the walls. Every brick of that house that you tried to take, you'll rebuild with your own hands. And only then will you understand what it means to own something." He agreed instantly. Maybe he thought it was a small price to pay, but what I was offering wasn't a deal. It was redemption. So he came back. The first few days were quiet, awkward. He barely spoke, but he worked. From sunrise to sunset, he painted, cleaned, repaired. I watched from the porch sometimes, my son, covered in dust, fixing the cracks he once ignored. It was almost poetic. After a week, he began to open up. "Mom," he said one evening, setting down his tools, "do you think Dad would forgive me?" I smiled faintly. "Your father had a temper, but he also had a heart. He'd be proud you're trying." That night, for the first time in years, we had dinner together. Simple soup and bread, but it felt like a feast. We laughed, awkwardly at first, then freely. The house felt alive again. Days turned into weeks. The garden blossomed, the paint dried, and slowly, I saw something return in him. Humility. The same humility he'd lost chasing everything that never mattered. Then, one afternoon, as he was fixing the porch steps, a delivery truck stopped by. "Package for Michael Carter," the driver said. Michael frowned. "I didn't order anything." He opened the box. Inside were his kids' drawings, a few clothes, and a short letter from Linda. It read, "I'm sorry. I need space. The kids will stay with me until things settle. Don't contact me." He sank to the floor, the letter trembling in his hands. I sat beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Life has a way of returning what you give, son," I said gently. "You gave her distance. Now she's giving it back." He looked at me, tears streaming. "Mom, I don't deserve your kindness." "No," I said softly, "but that's what makes it mercy." From that day, something truly changed. He stopped asking for help. He started waking early, making breakfast, taking care of small repairs without being told. I saw the man I'd always hoped he'd become. Not perfect, but aware. Then came the day I had been waiting for. He walked up to me, handed me a small envelope, and said, "Mom, this is for you." Inside was a check. Every penny he had earned from a construction job he took after finishing repairs. "It's not much," he said, "but I want to contribute. For the house." I looked at him, speechless. "You don't owe me anything, Michael." He shook his head. "No, Mom, I owe you everything. You saved me from myself." For the first time in years, I hugged him, not as a disappointed mother, but as a proud one. That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, I whispered a small prayer. "Thank you, God. You brought my son home, not through comfort, but consequence." The next day, I did something symbolic. I handed him a copy of the deed, not the real one, but a replica. "This," I said, "is what you wanted so badly once. Keep it as a reminder, not of what you lost, but of what you rebuilt." He smiled, eyes wet. "I'll never forget again, Mom. Not your birthday, not this house, not you." And as I stood there watching him walk away that night, no longer broken, but rebuilding, I realized something powerful. Sometimes locking someone out isn't cruelty. It's the only way to make them find their way back home. Months rolled by, and the rhythm of life settled into something peaceful. Michael had started a steady job in town, repairing homes and doing carpentry work. Every morning, I'd see his old truck rumble down the driveway, tools rattling in the back, and I'd smile, because it was the sound of a man finally building his life with his own hands. He'd stop by every Sunday, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with flowers from the market. The tension that once filled our every conversation had melted into something softer, respect. One Sunday, he arrived with his children. The little ones ran across the yard, laughing, the same way Michael used to when he was their age. I hadn't seen them in months. And when they hugged me, something deep inside me healed completely. "Grandma," the little girl said, handing me a hand-drawn card. It read, "Thank you for helping Daddy be happy again." I almost cried right there, not because of the words, but because they told me the story had finally come full circle. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, Michael raised his glass of water and said, "Mom, there was a time when I thought success meant taking, but now I know it's about giving, and you taught me that the hard way." I smiled, my heart full. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that save us. After dinner, he walked me to the porch. The moonlight fell softly over the house, freshly painted, repaired, and alive again. "You know," he said, looking up at it, "I used to think this house was the most important thing in the world. But it's not the bricks or the walls that matter. It's what they hold. I nodded. It's never been about the house, Michael. It's about the heart that makes it home. He leaned against the railing, quiet for a moment. Mom, I used to blame you for being strict, for not giving me what I wanted. But now, I thank you for not giving up on me. I touched his arm gently. I didn't save you, son. You saved yourself. I just locked the door until you found the key. We both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes only when pain has turned into wisdom. As he got ready to leave, he said, I want to start something of my own someday. Maybe build homes for people who can't afford them. Real homes, Mom. Not just roofs and walls. I felt a lump in my throat. That's the best kind of dream, Michael. One that builds others while healing yourself. Weeks later, he did just that. With 2 friends from his job, he started a small renovation business. He called it Second Chance Homes. When I saw the logo, a small house with a heart inside, I couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just a company. It was his redemption in motion. He even insisted on repainting my mailbox with his company's name as the first project. Free of charge, he said proudly. Life had come full circle, in the most unexpected, beautiful way. And then, one bright spring morning, I received a letter, this time from him. It wasn't asking for anything. It was a thank you note. Mom, it read, I know there was a day when you locked me out for good, but that lock wasn't punishment. It was protection. You saved me from losing everything. Every nail I drive, every home I fix, reminds me of what you taught me. Strength isn't taking, it's standing. I pressed that letter to my heart, tears slipping quietly down my cheeks. For years, I'd wondered if I was too harsh, too distant. But that letter told me the truth. Love isn't always soft. Sometimes, it's the strength to say no when the world expects you to say yes. That night, I sat on the porch again, the cool wind brushing my face. The same porch where I'd once watched my son walk away in anger. Now, it stood as a symbol of grace and growth. I thought of all the parents who struggle between helping and enabling, between love and letting go. It's never an easy balance. But sometimes the best way to save someone is to let them face the storm, so they can learn to find shelter within themselves. The next day, Michael arrived with his kids again. They played in the garden, laughter echoing like music. He came up to me with a quiet smile. Mom, he said, do you want to see something? He handed me a small keychain, a tiny replica of a door key. Engraved on it were the words, for the door you once closed, thank you. I felt my eyes sting as I held it in my palm. Michael, this is beautiful. He smiled. It's not just for you. It's a reminder for me too, that some doors close so we can find the right way back in. And as the sun began to set behind the trees, painting the sky in gold and crimson, I realized that every story of love and loss, every battle of pride and forgiveness, eventually finds its peace, not in victory, but in understanding. I looked at my son, his children, and the home that had seen it all. Betrayal, regret, healing, and finally, redemption. Welcome home, Michael, I whispered. He looked back at